Okay, running through my adolescence again. Age 10, I moved from Southend to Cambridgeshire and I had to start all over again. People were not used to seeing my different face. People stared and some commented. Fitting in was like the most important thing at that age group, isn't it? Among my peers. Senior school began and older kids are just as cruel. About halfway through first year senior school, I developed stomach issues. And initially I was admitted to hospital and prepared for surgery, believing it was my appendix. At which point I was actually ready to go to surgery. At which point they said no, there's something else going on, and in the end they worked out that I was severely constipated. I underwent months of gruesome tests and treatments, and eventually was sent to St Thomas's Hospital in London. In total, I was in hospital 10 months. I had that many x-rays, they had to stop in case I became radioactive. They never really got to the bottom, of what was wrong with me, except that my nervous system, it weren't sending brain signals to tell my brain that I needed to go to the toilet. I looked pregnant, because obviously I was that bloated out, and I was having surgery every week, and all sorts of horrible things done for a 10-year-old girl. It was quite a gruesome, horrible time. It was quite an experience, and I was so far away from home, school, family, friends. When I returned to school, it was much like starting all over again. No one was used to me. I'd only just really started at school at the time I got whisked off to hospital. At 12 the following year, I'd felt enough struggles with how I looked that we went to see a specialist about getting makeup to cover my birthmark. The makeup didn't work as the contrast between my birthmark, which was really dark brown, and my very white skin, which I've always had very pale white skin. The tone difference was so great that the makeup just didn't cover it successfully. And while I was there, the doctor asked some questions about the small lump that had been protruding out of my birthmark in the middle. Was it itchy? Did it bleed? I was too young to understand what these things meant. But yes, it had bled a fair bit. Like for a couple of years it had been bleeding every time I caught it. And it was itchy, and that was how I'd often catch it, was I'd scratch it and then it'd bleed. The lump was new and growing. And so we took a small biopsy while we were there, and within a week or so we had a call back, and so my first surgery was booked in under a general anaesthetic. The birthmark removal would take 4 surgeries between ages 13 and 16. The first removed the middle section with the lump, then the 3 others removed a small section each time to try to prevent too much change in my face. Less symmetrical, if that makes sense. My final surgery was at 16, when I was pregnant with my firstborn, Carlin. The last 3 surgeries were all done under a local anaesthetic, which was quite an experience to be awake and watching the scalpel as it come to my face, sliced open a part of my birthmark and then stitching me back up. I could see the whole thing. I think it certainly prepared me for a life of being a medical marvel and the gruesome treatments and experiments that were to come in my future. Between that and the hospital stay, I'd been through quite a lot. The first 3 operations, the wound that ended up it opened up after the surgeries, the stitches opened up, and the scar left, including the residual bits of birthmark, meant it was a very long time before people stopped staring at my face. I suppose I should be grateful for without the cruelty I would never have found out it was cancerous, so Lord only knows what could have happened. I didn't understand the connotations of all this. It wasn't that scary to me, to be honest, because I think I was too young to really know cancer and to know that I should be scared or anything like that. It was just a case of, the birthmark's going, that's it. At 14, I was also diagnosed with asthma. Now, my mum was a severe asthmatic all her life, and mine in comparison was hardly there. Never really caused me a problem, and I never became dependent on inhalers, not until much later in life with all the issues that I've got now. At 14, an ex-boyfriend kicked me in the back whilst I was sitting cross-legged. Pain was unbearable. It was indescribable pain. Over the following weeks I could barely walk. The doctor told me I had a twisted spine. We discussed surgery options, which the odds were 50-50 chances, so I refused. I was like, I thought I'd be better off becoming disabled later in life rather than doing it and risking becoming disabled now. At 14, 15 at the time. I didn't know that I was going to end up completely disabled by the time I was 40 anyway, so... He warned me having babies or physical work would make it worse. I was sent away with a prescription for high-dose heavy-duty painkillers. I chose not to take them constantly. Then and still now, no pain relief has ever helped my back pain. It is also worth noting that my mental health and self-harm, anorexia and all that began. I think my anorexia sort of began after I came out of hospital because I'd been really bloated out. And then I remember controlling what I was eating and throwing food away and lying to my parents and stuff like that. From about 12 onwards, really. I think the self-harming started at about 15, and they went on to burden me for the rest of my life, really. I think I never really stopped self-harming, whether it be through, like, the anorexia itself is considered self-harm, but that all began then. So, that was my adolescence. Interesting little life, eh? Thanks for joining me. Give us a like, comment if you want to get in touch with me, if you've had any of the same sort of issues as I have had, or just want to know more, or you want to talk to someone. I am here for anyone. Do subscribe if you want to know more. We're on a hell of a roller coaster ride in my health story, and I'm trying to make sense of it. I'd love any input from anyone else that's got any experience or knowledge, any doctors that want to take on my case and have a look at what's going on with me. Love you all. Breathe easy, folks.